For the first, most powerful supercharged engine, I will start off with this Inline 3. This build is made in Automation's Al-Rilma update of version 4.3. This may become outdated in the future as the game continues to be updated. So for this engine build, first of all, on the top left portion of your screen, make sure that the engine family year is maxed out to the year of 2020 like you see here. And with this Inline 3, you'll be choosing the aluminum silicon heavy block material because of the ability to upboard the engine as much as possible, which you'll see later. For the engine's bore, you max this out to 180 millimeters, and for the stroke, just lower it just a little bit to 85.4 millimeters to get the engine size to 6,519 cubic centimeters, or just over 6.5 liters. With a dual cam 5 valves per cylinder, made out of aluminum billet race material for the head design. And for the quality slider, if you do see one, just simply max this out to a plus 15 for everything. And in this quality slider, with the sandbox tech pool, you click on this little box here to pop up this here window. And then just simply for the engine, the top end, the bottom end, the turbocharger, the fuel, and the exhaust is you set this to a plus 15 for everything for the engine tech. After you got everything maxed out, click on Apply Changes, and I'll head on over to the bottom end of the engine. So with this engine, like I mentioned about upboring, I'll upboard this here to 184 millimeters, add this up by 4 millimeters to get the true engine size to 6,812 millimeters, or about 6.8 liters with this Inline 3. Now for the crank cowl rods and pistons, so for the crankshaft you can choose either of these, either billet steel heavy or billet steel. I'll just choose a regular billet steel for the sake of weight. The cowl rods and pistons are both made out of forged heavy for both of these components, and for the balancing mass, include a balancing shaft with the counterweight maxed out to 100 on the slider. For the compression, it's not like my older engines where you just max it out as I used to do it. So for the compression, it will be set to an 8.8 to 1 ratio. The cam profile, a big difference too, and a low setting of just a 4. The springs and lifters set to a little bit more towards a softer setting at a 33, with the RPM limit set to 8100 RPM with the use of VVT for all cams. Now for the aspiration type, in honorary of the Al-Rilma update, which is currently in the open beta phase, choose the Supercharger setting. I'll do the turbochargers and maybe twin charge in the future, once I get more used to this game, this version here. The intercooler maxes out 12,100 horsepower. With the geometry setting of this supercharger, we'll be choosing a screw type of supercharger, and a bypass. None isn't. There's no real difference between none or bypass, and clutch would eventually break the engine build. The capacity of the supercharger, I'll be setting this by manually typing in 2410, or about 2.4 liters of the supercharger capacity. The supercharger's gear ratio set to 2.55. The supercharger tune setting set to a 36 for the third row. And finally, the final row for the boost rating will be set to 21.76 PSI. And for the fuel system, I'll be choosing a direct injection system. I cannot choose a throttle per cylinder as per I normally do because the supercharged engines cannot be used for this setup. The fuel mapping will be set more towards a lean setting at a 24. The lambda equals 1 area. Normally this was grayed out with the setting here, but the timing, I kept it as is to a 50. There's no difference either if you're to max out to an advanced setting, retard setting. There's no difference in terms of power or nothing like that. The type of fuel we're using a nitromethane type of fuel with 90% nitromethane. I believe it's what NM90 stands for, a 90% blend of nitromethane. The intake manifold race setting at a 26, I believe? Nope, correction, at a 15 for the manifold size. I got my notes a little bit wrong here. So for the headers, tubular racing headers, set to a 26 for the header size. This is what I got confused with. With the exhaust size, will be set to 114 millimeters or 4.5 inches with no cats or mufflers, and bring up the quality. And we get the engine's final horsepower rating at 3,222 horsepower at 8,100 RPM, torque at 2,099.6 pounds-feet of torque at 7,900 RPM. So the torque in terms of the pistons are practically maxed out at 100%, same thing with the RPM threshold with the current setup of the engine. But fear not, even though it is 100% stress for either of these two components for the pistons, this engine will run in automation as well as at BeamNG drive because, well, with the reliability factor, it's at 0.5, it is not at a 0.0, which means if it's at a 0.0, then the engine won't run, and you can't export the engine to a working condition in BeamNG drive. So I'll give you a list of this engine here by doing a basic pull test, and then I'll try to fit this into a car, throw it around a track, and give you the full experience of this here supercharged inline 3 engine. So start with the pull test right now. Damn, despite having an RPM of 8,000 RPM and being supercharged, this sounds pretty badass for a 3-cylinder engine. So, with this 3,200 horsepower supercharged inline 3, in terms of tuning, it's a stark difference compared to my version 4.2 turbocharged engines. On here, getting the cam profile as low as possible managed to build power at the high end. With the old updates, it seemed like maxing out the compression and cam profile was the meta to building a powerful engine. With this guy, it's the opposite. Nevertheless, it's currently, as of this version, the most powerful supercharged inline 3 engine in the game. So that'll do it with Automation, the Car Company Tycoon game's version 4.3. And for those who are interested in this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any videos like this in the future. So this is TRIZE Rising Up, and signing out.